right, Assalamu alaikum to everybody. Peace, blessings. Today we are here and we're talking in English. So let me just quickly introduce our guest and talk a little bit about the topic. So the topic that we're going to talk about today is Nabi Muhammad the best prophet, the leader of all prophets? What does the Quran say? So as you can see, as you can see, I'm not alone. We've got a guest with us, and his name is Baba Shuaib. So Baba Shuaib is originally from Ghana. He's now based in Europe. He's a Quranic researcher and a critical thinker based on religion who is a Muslim. He does online lectures based on the guidance of the Quran alone on platforms such as Facebook and YouTube, and recently TikTok. He has a background in MSA and Classical Arabic, and he has translated the Great Quran with transliteration 2021 edition, and is the author of Refer to the Quran, Volume 1. Brother, you've done quite a lot. Assalamu alaikum. Peace. Welcome.
Wa alaikum assalam, and assalamu alaikum to the viewers and the listeners. Thank you very much for the introduction. I appreciate this invite and this platform to discuss such an interesting topic. Thank you very much.
Okay, so let me just set the scene a little bit for the sake of our audience and to keep us kind of a little bit working to a plan as well. So today, obviously our topic, to reiterate, what is the character of Nabi Muhammad in the Quran versus how we have understood him, and why there are a lot of differences. We all know about them. We're not going to talk about all of them in consideration of time. So we're going to stick to this topic, but we'll address 4 main discussion points. So the duration of our talk today, we're going to try and stick to within 2 hours. If we finish before that, we were hoping, Brother Shuaib and I, that we may finish maybe hour and a quarter between us. And if so, then we should hopefully have some time for questions and answers, etc., etc. So if somebody has any questions, more than happy to take them and have a chat to them about them. So from a schedule perspective, I think in the beginning, just to set the scene a little bit, we would start a little bit about sharing our experiences of how our societies, so I'm from Pakistan, Brother Shuaib is from Ghana, how have our societies over-venerated Nabi Muhammad? Like from the character that we find in the Quran versus the character that we find in our daily lives, in our literature, in people that we talk to, the masajid, what is the difference and what has the experience been with that? The second point, or the discussion point we'll pick up is the world we live in made for Nabi Muhammad? Was everything we see around us, the Al-Kawn, was it made for one person? This is something that's quite common in Pakistan and India at the very least. The next point we'll pick up is, was Nabi Muhammad, or is Nabi Muhammad the leader of all prophets? So Sayyidul anbiya wa mursaleen. Is that really what Quran says? We'll then talk about, have a little look at some of the discussion, some of the general arguments that have been put forward by our traditional clergy that support the view that Nabi Muhammad was better, that he was best, that he had some special claim to excellence based upon the fact that all of us have ijma, or he was rahmatul lil alamin, etc., etc. We'll have a little talk about that, and in the end we'll summarize by looking at what does the Quran say about Nabi Muhammad. So it's not what I say, what you say, what Brother Shuaib says, what people around us today say was written in a book 200 years ago, but what does the Quran say about the same person we're talking about? And as I said, we'll take questions and answers after that. All right, just to confirm, so if somebody could confirm on the chat that they can hear us. I know Dr. Nadeem, Assalamu alaikum, you have mentioned that you couldn't hear us before, but you can now. Assalamu alaikum to Muhammad Shah and Imran Tahir and Vril Docs as well. So hopefully our voices are coming through okay.
Yeah, they can give us the heads up in case they can hear us sounded clearly.
Yes, that would be awesome. A heads up, a thumbs up. Yeah, okay. Now the replies are coming back. We are being heard, which is awesome. All right, brother. So I think because you're a guest, you're an esteemed guest here, I'll just take this slide out because this is all I had. If you start off maybe with your experiences, and maybe if you can take us through, because where I live, I've been involved with a few Ghanaian Muslims and Christians, so it's obviously quite a diverse culture there. So if you want to maybe talk a little bit about what was your experience growing up in Ghana, And what did you think? Did people there, Muslims there in Ghana, over-venerate the character of Nabi Muhammad?
Yeah, thank you very much, Brother Musa. The issue here is me growing up in Ghana. I was entangled between going to the madrasa. I've been to a Shia madrasa and I've been to a Sunni madrasa before. And actually, I spent more time under the Shia madrasa, but I ended up choosing to be a Sunni person. But luckily, I wasn't an extremist type of person. But in between, you can see the love, the way people have been indoctrinated to love the Prophet, excessively, is way dangerous, and it's so dangerous that sometimes you have to be careful the way you say things about the Prophet to people. Of course, Ghana doesn't have the record of being like an extremist type of Islamic country, but however, growing up among the midst of people who claim to be Sunni, Shia, or Tijaniya, they will not tolerate such nonsense from you, and you don't dare even question some of the things you've been told concerning the Prophet. So me growing up, of course, I wasn't given the guidance whilst I was in Ghana. It's after I traveled to Europe before God actually enlightened me to find the guidance. But back in Ghana, when I compare my life to concerning how people venerate the Prophet to the extent, and you hear people saying, "I love the Prophet more than my mother. I would like to die loving the Prophet more than any other thing, or any other else." And the love they show for the Prophet is way more than what they show for God. So I think it's a generalized thing all over the world, and it is not only limited to the situation in Ghana, but of course, in some countries, it's way more beyond what you can imagine. How the people have excessive love for the Prophet, blindly, I will use the word excessive love, which is blindly loving the Prophet without understanding who the Prophet is in the Quran. So actually growing up with such thoughts, I was lucky enough not to fall in this kind of criteria, the trap where you end up showing love blindly. So that is more of what I can say for now.
No, I think what you said there, I actually really loved what you said. You said indoctrinated to love. I don't know if there's a bigger contradiction in terms, if more than that. So you really being trained in a dogmatic way to love somebody, an ideal of a person that you should not be told or forced to love. Yes, we're always told, love your mother, love your father. But over time, we begin to realize that this is actually natural. This is meant for us. But to be told to love somebody you haven't seen, you haven't met, you've been sold a dream about a person, that's just strange. If you really take a step back. And I was taking a step back and thinking about what you said, and that is quite weird. But I think growing up in Pakistan, it wasn't that different, I guess, from what you were saying, what you went through as well. So I guess from my perspective, every time we in Pakistan still talk about Nabi Muhammad, you will see a lot of people, they'll be kissing their thumbs. I don't know if this is a common practice in Ghana or not, but if they hear the name Muhammad, they will take up their thumbs, they will kiss them, and they'll put the thumbs on their eyes. Does that happen in Ghana as well, or is it just an Indo-Pak thing?
Well, I've seen what you were saying. I've witnessed that from the Pakistani perspective, because, like I told you, I've been with Pakistanis, know how it is. But to the extent in my country, the way they show the love to the Prophet is about whenever his name is mentioned, even 1,000 times, they have to keep saying Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Sallallahu. They have to say it with the highest tone, and this is one way they show the love to the Prophet, when his name is mentioned. So whenever you are sitting next to such a person and his name is mentioned and you don't utter any utterance, the person is like, "Wow, are you a kafir, or what are you? Why you don't say Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam?" So growing up in such an environment, it is sometimes tricky and very funny to find yourself in such situations with people, and people doing things and they have no idea why they do it, just because they have been indoctrinated to just believe this is the norm and how things should be done. and they refuse to think outside the box, to question things, to ask for clarity. Sometimes we question things not just to, we question for clarity so that I can be convinced of what I'm doing. But yet still, people are not given the chance to do such things. Growing up in the madrasas we have been to, you can even be whipped. They can cane you. They can whip you for actually challenging any doctrine that has been put forth.
Yeah, I've seen videos on Sudanese madrasas where people do get whipped and chained if they don't do quite something in the proper way. Maybe Ghana is similar, but now I've got a lot of other common things as well. So if you don't add prefixes and suffixes, people mind, people get angry. Blasphemy is a really strange one, and this is something really weird. It's like people will be more offended if you said something wrong about the prophet or you heard something about him versus what people say about God. And this is so wrong. It's completely the wrong, the upside down kind of world we live in. You can say whatever you want to say, anything bad about Allah, and you can just say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or Allah azza wa jal. You can just say Allah. People don't mind. But if you just say the name of a person and don't give him more veneration than Allah, people then mind. So this is completely wrong. We were other strange things that I think are Pakistan, India special. Nabi Muhammad is still alive to a lot of our Muslims. He is made of nur. He knew all ghaib. He can do shafa'a for everybody. We got lots of songs and we call them na'at for him. Go to any masjid, you will find two names side by side, Allah and Muhammad. So this is, I guess, we've come down to. Yeah. Okay. All right. Maybe let's. Go on.
No. You can continue. I was just agreeing to the point you just made.
Okay. So I guess maybe you can start up with the first discussion point, and I can share screens. So if you got any ayat, Baba Shuaib, you want to talk about, I can bring them up in live. And this was the discussion point before we get to the main crux of the topic, which is in Pakistan, at least, people say and believe, and India, that this whole world, this universe, was made for one man, Prophet Muhammad. Are there any verses, Quranic verses, that you may want to talk about in relation to that?
We can, first of all, you can put Surah Al-Jathiyah, Quran chapter 45, verse 22. You can put it there. Let's see what God says in that verse.
45, 22. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, 45, 22.
Yeah,
God mentioned something interesting as to the reason why He created the heavens and the earth. Now, approaching the Quran, for me, whoever comes next to me, what I try to let them understand before we talk about this verse is, you don't need to seek a judge other than God when it comes to the matters of the deen, Islam. You don't need to seek any other judge apart from God. It says clearly in Quran chapter 6, verse 114. أَفَغَيْرَ اللَّهِ أَبْتَغِي حَكَمًا وَهُوَ الَّذِي أَنزَلَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْكِتَابَ مُفَصَّلًا. So you are dealing with God as the ultimate cause of judge. And then when it comes to the truth also, God says, وَيُحِقُّ اللَّهُ الْحَقَّ بِكَلِمَاتِهِ وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْمُجْرِمُونَ. That is Quran chapter 10, verse 82. So God is the one who will enforce the truth with His words, even if the criminals dislike it. So I would prefer God to give us the explanation and tell us things clearly than to rely on another source to tell us what information is. So hereby you find people telling you out of their whims and desires that the heaven and earth were created only for the prophet, because of the prophet. Yet we are yet to find such a verse in the Quran which actually confirms such information. So this verse put on the screen actually breaks things down in a simplified way. It says, وَخَلَقَ اللَّهُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ بِالْحَقِّ. You see, and God created the heavens and the earth in truth, so that every soul, you see, وَلِتُجْزَى كُلُّ نَفْسٍ بِمَا كَسَبَتْ. So that every soul will be recompensed, or may be recompensed for what it has earned. Then He says, وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ, and they will not be wronged. So if you take this verse and check the way the verse has been arranged and by the statement God is saying. God says, and God created the heavens and the earth in truth, or with the truth, because the bill sometimes can be used as in or with. So he created the heavens and earth coming with the truth, so that every soul will be recompensed for what it has earned, and they will not be wrong. So here alone, if we deduce that, we can deduce that the heaven and earth were created for one purpose, which is to serve the truth. We are here because of the truth. What is the truth? And you can only get the truth with God. And God is Al-Haq himself. That is why we are here. So in Quran chapter 10, verse 32, God is asking us, فَمَاذَا بَعْدَ الْحَقِّ إِلَّا دَلَالٌ. What is there after the truth? Except error, or if not error, what else will you find? So you can only get the truth with God. So that is why prior to this, I quoted chapter 10, verse 82, where God says, وَيُحِقُّ اللَّهُ الْحَقَّ بِكَلِمَاتِهِ. So based on the truth, it is God going to use his words to enforce the truth with his words. It is not we or us, the people, who have to enforce the truth. It is God himself by using his own words. So we can see the heavens and the earth, he created them with the truth so that every soul will be paid for what it has earned, and they will not be wrong. Now, another verse I want you to put on the screen before, I simplify this issue. It's in chapter 44, verse 38 to 39. That is Surah Al-Dukhan.
Yep, got it.
Surah Al-Dukhan. You got it?
Yep. The screen has come up.
So now, two verses that we go to, right?
Your voice broke up, brother. Okay. You want to say that again? Yeah, I can hear you now. Yep.
I said we are going to start with the verse. You can hear me. Okay, good. We start with the verse 38 and connect it to verse 39. So it says, وَمَا خَلَقْنَا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Then it says, وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا لَائِبِينَ. And we did not create the heavens and the earth and whatever is between them to play, like to have an amusement. That is not why God created the heavens and the earth. So he's going to tell us the reason why he created the heavens and the earth. So the reason is found in verse 39 below. Then he says, Ma khalaqnahuma illa bilhaq. You see, God giving the answer here. He told us clearly that he did not create the heavens and the earth in order to, and whatever is between the heavens and the earth for us to play or to have an amusement. But instead, ma khalaqnahuma illa bilhaq. So we did not create them both, the heavens and the earth, except for the truth, with the truth, or in truth. But when you take the context of the way the verses are arranged, you can see here it is for the truth. That is why he created the heavens and the earth. Then he says, وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَهُمْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Now, anytime the Quran uses the notion of أَكْثَرَهُمْ, the majority, there's always a problem. You can see, he says, أَكْثَرَهُمْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. And you can see that the majority of the human beings on earth are dealing with ignorance. They do things out of ignorance because they have been indoctrinated to think in such instance. So they don't know the truth. They don't even bother to investigate what the truth is. So God is clearly telling us the answer here. He did not create the heavens and the earth for us to play, but he created the heavens and the earth for the truth. And there's no way in the Quran where God calls the prophet as being the truth. Haq himself. God himself is Haq. He never said the prophet is Al-Haq. He said God is the truth. Quran chapter 10 verse 32. It says it's clearly there. You see. So whenever you are dealing with people, they can tell you their whims and desires, their opinions, as said in Quran chapter 6 verse 116, when God says, وَإِن تُطِعْ أَكْثَرَ مَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ يُضِلُّوكَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Then God says, إِنْ يَتَّبِعُونَ إِلَّا ظَنًّا وَإِنْ هُمْ إِلَّا يَخْرُصُونَ. If you obey most of those on earth, they will mislead you from the way of God, because your objective is just one: follow the truth, which is from God. So if you go to obey the majority who don't know, as God is telling us why the heavens and the earth are created, he told us clearly in these two verses I just read, that he created the heavens and the earth for the truth, or with the truth. It's because of the truth we are here. So now, those people will keep telling you, oh, the heavens and the earth were created because of Prophet Muhammad. You see the ignorance. And likewise, you go to the Christians, they will also tell you the same. The heavens and the earth are created because of Jesus. You see, so these are things people formulate for themselves. They can't prove it whatsoever from an authentic or authorized source, but instead their own fabrications and the dogmas they have written for themselves. Yeah. This is the answer there.
Yeah, no, it's quite interesting, because when I looked through this topic, and just for the sake of those listening, we did not actually exchange verses before. So whatever he has got is Brother Shuaib came up with and didn't tell me about them before, nor did I. But it's interesting how I started on the same pitch as well. So I did a very simple search in the Quran. Khalaqa samawat. Well, let's look at all the verses where Allah Himself is talking about Him creating the samawat and the earth. What does He say? Does He give us any reason as to why He created them? And did He say He created all of this for the sake of one person, or because and this is something really strange, but we in our world, part of the world, do believe that Nabi Muhammad is the mahbub, is the beloved, of Allah, as if there's some sort of very specific relationship. Well, does Allah say anything about that? And when I look through them all, and you picked one of those similar verses, I find nothing like that in the Quran. So everywhere there's khalqus samawati wal ard, there's talk about fikr. You have to think. وَيَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, or لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَعْقِلُونَ, that in all of this creation, there are signs for people who use their aql. إِنَّ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, that bashak, that absolutely in the creation of the samawat and the earth, وَاخْتِلَافِ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ, and the passing of day and night, لَآيَاتٍ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ, are signs for those who have intellect, who think about it. So I can keep going through all of these verses, but I will conclude just as you did, Brother Shuaib. The Quran talks nothing about khalq, creation of the heavens, of the earth, no matter how you take these terms, to be for the sake of a single person. And this is one I picked up out of the many, in the same vein, that hey, even in these phenomena that Allah has created for us, they are as signs for people who want to use their intellect. They're not the people who are being programmed or indoctrinated to love, but people who want to use their minds. They'll pick up one more verse, which is about khalq al-insan. So Allah does talk about khalaq al-insan or khalq al-insan. And I thought maybe Allah will say something about us there. Then, hey, I created you, the human, so that you could be, obeying or listening, or because I so loved one person. It's a very Christian terminology, by the way. And I found nothing. So yes, there's talk about khalq al-insan, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ سُلَالَةٍ مِنْ طِينٍ, etc., etc. Nothing about why. Only particular one that I thought is relevant to us is probably this ayah, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. So we know khalq of this. No, إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونِ. So I did not create the jinn and the ins except that they serve me. So it's really quite straightforward. So, brother, did you want to say something?
No, I'm just agreeing with the statement you just made. And to simplify it, is just like the Quran is the epitome of evidence when it comes to the deen. And God gave credence to that in chapter 4, I think verse 174. It talks about the Burhan, the Quran being the Burhan to mankind. And then he calls it the Nur and Mubina.
Yes, I've got it here.
So the Quran has to give you the final say. So if that statement cannot be found in the Quran, then it's just a bogus claim, or it's just a useless claim the person is making. And this is how, when I deal with a lot of scholars, this is how they find it difficult to have a discussion, because they will just say a statement and I say, hey, hold on, where did you get this statement from? Then he will be like, oh, God said it. And I'll be like, okay, show me the verse. then they are stuck.
Mm.
They'll be like, okay, I'll find a verse for you. I said, look, the Quran has only 114 chapters. Only. It is not as if you have to go to Mecca to go and ask the question to find the answer.
Mm.
So just the Quran, show me or give me the chapter, I'll find the verse. Because I have translated the Quran, so I know most of the verses by head. So if now you will now tell me, oh, you wait, I'll find the answer and give you. It's like you're playing with people's conscience. That's a lie, you know. And God tells us concerning this kind of people, even the people of the book did the same thing in Quran chapter 3, verse 78, right? وَإِنَّ مِنْهُمْ لَفَرِيقًا يَلْقُونَ أَلْسِنَتَهُمْ بِالْكِتَابِ لِتَحْسَبُوهُ مِنَ الْكِتَابِ, to make you consider it is from the book while it is not from the book. And then they will say, وَيَقُولُونَ هُوَ مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ وَمَا هُوَ مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ, while it is not coming from God again. وَيَقُولُونَ عَلَى اللَّهِ الْكَذِبَ وَهُمْ يَعْلَمُونَ. So they will lie to you while they know. You see,
Yeah,
and this is what most
yeah. And kadhib is a big thing as well. So وَمَنْ أَظْلَمَ مِمَّنِ افْتَرَى عَلَى اللَّهِ الْكَذِبَ. So who is bigger in zulm, who invents something about God when God did not say? So it's quite interesting how one ayah, you start from one ayah and you go from one ayah to different ayah, and the theme and the message never changes. And so far in this question, I think we can conclude that, well, as far as Allah is concerned, as far as book, as far as his burhan, as far as Allah's nur is concerned, Allah did not create the world for one person, no matter who that person was. All right. Let's go on to the next point, which is, again, something we hear about all the time. I'm sure it's common in Ghana as well. Nabi Muhammad was the leader of all the prophets. Sayyidul anbiya, Sayyidul mursaleen. He, if there was a ranking system, he'd be right there as number one. He was the best prophet there ever was, there ever will be. What would you like to say about that, brother?
That is another false claim, and that claim is very, very is a laughable claim. I mean no disrespect to the prophet, but claiming to those who make such an allegation, that is what I say is a laughable claim. But first of all, the prophet didn't bring anything new that hasn't been done before. So what people fail to realize is this prophet we are talking about was asked to follow the Millata Ibrahima. He was not asked to create a new creed or to form a new akida or to form a new system. He was simply asked to follow the Millata Ibrahima. Now, Prophet Muhammad is a human being. Prophet Ibrahim is a human being as well. Now, human beings, the genes and everyone else, we were created to serve God. Now, when you take the notion of Prophet Ibrahim, why God asked us to follow his millah, for instance, in Quran chapter 2, verse 124, it is explicitly stated that God told him, he says, Qala inni ja'iluka linnas imama. God is telling Ibrahim alayhi salam, chapter 2, verse 124. He says, Qala inni ja'iluka linnas imama. Are you saying among the nas, all the prophets who ever existed are not part of this nas? Are they angels? Were they angels? Were they jinns? No, they're part of nas. So God explicitly, not indirectly, directly telling Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. For those who don't know, he's talking about Ibrahim. You can start the verse from beginning. He says, "Wa is ibtala Ibrahim rabbuhu bikilmatin fa'atammahunna." Then he fulfilled what God tested him with the words. He fulfilled it. Then God now told him, "Qala inni ja'iluka linnas imama." You see, so God made him as a leader for mankind. See the big difference here. He made him a leader for mankind. And remember, out of his descendants came prophets. His descendants came prophets. So Are you now going to tell me that are people going to tell us that out of nowhere from some foreign book which hasn't been authorized by God is now telling you that this prophet is the best of all prophets or is the leader of prophets? The word leader is imam. And this is an explicit word of God telling us he made Ibrahim as a leader for mankind. And we can find it in the Quran. We are not even talking about a different book. It is in the same book Prophet Muhammad was given to bring to mankind. And God said he made Ibrahim as a leader. So out of this, then God now is telling Muhammad alayhi salam. This is what he told him in Quran chapter 16, verse 123. You can put the verse up there.
16, 123. Yep.
16. Yeah, Surah An-Nahl.
I had the same verse as well. Yep, go on.
See?
Yep.
So now God is telling he said, ثُمَّ أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ أَنِ اتَّبِعْ مِلَّةَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ حَنِيفًا. So God actually inspired him that you should follow the creed of Ibrahim. Hanifa, he was truthful, he was orthodox. You know, he was, everything he did was for God, sincerely. There was nothing fishy out of what he does for God. You know, so now God asked this prophet, you have to follow. He used the word anitabi. The word taba'a means to follow, to pursue something, to follow it. So now God is asking this prophet of the Quran that follow. It has been inspired to you. Then in the same timeline, at a later time in the same timeline, in Quran chapter 6, verse 161. Now we are going to confirm what the prophet himself said.
This one?
Chapter 6, verse 161. No, 161.
Yep, got it.
The messenger is to say, he the prophet, he the messenger at the same time, because Muhammad had two duties. Chapter 33, verse 40 says, مَا كَانَ مُحَمَّدٌ أَبَا أَحَدٍ مِّن رِجَالِكُمْ وَلَكِنْ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ وَخَاتَمَ النَّبِيِّينَ. So he was not only a messenger, he was a prophet at the same time. He had two assignments. However, in this verse, Kul is being attributed to the messenger because the messenger has to now utter these words and say it as he has been inspired. So he says, Kul, innani hadani rabbi ila siratin mustaqim. Then he says, Dinan kiyaman millata Ibrahima hanifa wa ma kana min al-mushrikin. So now this is the prophet, the messenger, the one whom people are claiming that he is the leader of the prophets. Now he is subduing himself by telling us clearly that he has been guided to the what? A straight path by his Lord. And what is the straight path? Then he says, Dinan Kiyama Millata Ibrahima Hanifa. That was what he was inspired to follow. So now, logically, how can this person now be the leader of this Ibrahim he's following? How does logic doesn't give the chance for this? Doesn't work. Logic will not agree with this. You understand? So if Ibrahim was the one God chose as a leader, obviously, if you are following his footsteps, he is your leader. You don't become the leader when you are following somebody's footsteps. You see, so to summarize this, it is not as if Prophet Muhammad himself alone followed the creed of Abraham. He advised every believer on earth to also follow the creed of Abraham. Quran chapter 3, verse 95. We can confirm that.
Yeah.
That is Surah Al-Imran. Chapter 3, verse 95. Not 195.
Oh, sorry.
95.
I'm obviously not hearing very well today, am I? Yep, I've got it. Yep.
Well, now, so this messenger was asked to say again in the same book, the Quran, where God told us Abraham is the leader of mankind. In that same book, this messenger has been asked to say, Qul, Sadaqallah. You can see, when we say Sadaqallah, the truth can only come from God, nobody else, because God himself is the truth, and he can always give you the honest truth. So Sadaqallah, then he says, Fattabi'u. فَاتَّبِعُوا مِلَّةَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ حَنِيفًا وَمَا كَانَ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. So this is the messenger here telling the people also. Then because when you take the word فَاتَّبِعُوا, it is in a plural form. It's telling the people. You understand? So he, the messenger, now has been asked to tell the people that you should also follow the Millata Ibrahima. So evidently, if I'm following Prophet Muhammad, we are all following Ibrahim. Nothing external. Nothing external. Everything has to be based in internal source, which is the Quran. Because even the Hadith followers who claim that Prophet Muhammad, khuluqu Quran, his character, his everything was the Quran alone. He never followed any other source apart from the Quran. You see, so why will it be that this man, this entity, will now become a leader of all the prophets? How does logic agree to this? How? You get the point. So there's no room where somebody can fit this in and say, hey, you know what, I follow the sunnah of the prophet. No scholar on earth can even prove one single verse where it says we should follow the sunnah of Muhammad. Muhammad doesn't have his own sunnah. Actually, Quran chapter 33 verse 38, if you put the verse on the screen, we will see whatever the prophet was doing was based on the command of his God. It is not.
This one?
Yes. So he says, yes. ما كان على النبي من حرج فيما فرض الله له. Then he says, سنة الله في الذين خلوا من قبل. So we can see prophets already came before him. So the title of the chapter is based on, the subject is based on the prophet. So this subject, the prophet, wherever there is no difficulty or there is no guilt upon him concerning what God has ordained for him. So if God ordains something, we can find it in the Quran. There is nothing God will command us if he has actually commanded that we cannot find it in the Quran. Anything else somebody will bring to you and say, God commanded this, is a lie if it is not coming approved by God. So whatever God did concerning what God has commanded him, according to the Quran, that is Sunnat Allah. It's not called Sunnat al-Nabi. Now this is the misconception there. So there's no way Prophet Muhammad can be the leader of all the prophet. However, this is where the misconception arises. Quran chapter 3 verse 81. This is what people bring the misconception. If you go to Quran chapter 3 verse 81.
Yeah.
Now,
sorry, 1 second.
In this verse,
yep,
there is good. In this verse, there is no notion of leadership in this verse. No notion of God giving credence to a prophet, but instead he gave credence to a messenger. And we all know the duty of a messenger. وَمَا عَلَى رَسُولِ إِلَّا بَلَاغٌ مُبِينٌ. A messenger's duty is to deliver the clear notification. So now this verse is telling us, and when God took a covenant with the prophets, then he told him, لَمَا آتَيْتُكُمْ مِنْ كِتَابٍ وَحِكْمَةٍ. Whatever I'll give you of a book and what the hikmah. ثُمَّ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ. You see, the duty of the messenger is to musaddika or musaddikun, to confirm what is with you, ma'akum, lima ma'akum. So the duty of a messenger is to confirm. And if I'm coming to confirm something from you, doesn't mean I am more authoritative than you. I give an example. I work in the sales and marketing department. Are you telling me when a customer comes to me to confirm the price of a product, does that mean they have more authority over me just because they want to confirm a price?
That's a good point, actually. Yeah.
You get the point. So just sending somebody to confirm something doesn't actually make him authoritative over you. The confirmation is to give credence to the message. That is why the person comes to confirm. So if a customer comes to you to confirm a price, he just wants to be assured that yes, that what he saw there is the truth. That's why he's confirming. He will come to you and say, hey, excuse me, check this product for me. It says 10 euros there. Can you check? Does it say 10 euro or $10 there? If you also check and you say, yes, it says $10, he agrees with you, does it? So this is why the words of God, when they come in time, they have to confirm each other. And that is why God says about the Quran, Quran chapter 10, verse 37. You see, ما كان هذا القرآن أن يفترى من دون الله ولكن تصديق الذي تفصيل الكتاب لا ريب فيه من رب العالمين. Quran chapter 10, verse 37.
Yep, got it.
So God says, and this is not the Quran that will be invented by other than God. However, it is a confirmation of what was before it. Then he says, an elaboration of the Al-Kitab. There is no doubt therein from the Lord of the worlds. So who brought the Quran? Automatically the messenger. And who is that? Muhammad. He brought the Quran. His duty is to confirm using the message of God, not his own words. That is why God used the word Rasul in that previous verse, to just show us that he is giving credence to the messenger, but not to the prophet. To say, oh, the prophet is the leader, so because he came to confirm what the other prophet. No, it doesn't mean that way. Are they going to tell us just because Muhammad alayhi salam came to confirm Ibrahim in the Quran, does that mean he's greater than Ibrahim? Where God says that, and God has the ultimate truth. If God says it, we agree. But does he say that? The answer is no. And to cause more controversy here, Moses, you can open Quran chapter 38, verse 44 to 48. I'm going to let the viewers understand.
This one, Wadhkur Ismail.
Yes.
Now
we can start. That is verse. No, you start from verse 44.
44.
Right? Or we can start up above. You go up a bit.
43.
So now you are on 48, right? Now let's start
I'm on
from
30.
45.
Okay. Yep.
Now you're on 43. So 45 is the So what's Kuru Ibadina? Then he says Ibrahima wa Ishaq wa Yaqub ulil aid wa absar. Now he says inna akhlaqnahum. Then he says what? Bi khalisatin zikr dar. Now the interesting part comes after this, where he says wa innahum indina lamin al mustafain al akhyar. Now this statement here, after God mentioned these three prophets in this category, he mentioned Ibrahim, and he mentioned Ishaq, and he mentioned Yaqub. So he mentioned a father, and he mentioned a son, and he mentioned a grandson in a row. Then he told us, Innahum, indeed, this group, Innahum, indina, with us, lamin al mustafain al akhyar, they are among the chosen ones who are the best. The word akhyar comes from the word khair. The word khair means good. But when you use it in a superlative form, the sigatul tafdil, if you use the alif with the amzatul fat'ah on top, it becomes akhyar in a superlative form. And it's talking about a plural sense of people. So it used al akhyar to determine that they are the best. So they were among those God has chosen as the best with him. Then the verse doesn't stop there. It continues. It tells you again, Wazkur Ismaila, another son of Ibrahim. Then wa Aliyasa. Then Wazul Kifil. So now, in addition, these are 6 prophets mentioned in this list. In the list we just read prior to this and this. Then he says, wa kullun minal what? Akhyar. So all these 6 prophets he mentioned, they are among the best. And where do we find this statement? We find it in the book of God. And we find it in the book, the same Muhammad alayhi salam brought it to us. So are you saying God forgot to mention Musa, or to say, Muhammad, you are also part of this best ones? or to say, okay, Isa was there. And apart from these verses I just quoted to you, you will never, ever find any other verse similar to this kind of verses that we just quoted. It doesn't exist anywhere in the Quran again, where you find another verse where God will tell you this prophet by name is among the best. You don't find it. You know, because only God knows who is the best. So he is the one to tell you who is the best. Just like when we watch football, it is FIFA who chooses who the best player in the world is. So if FIFA says this player is the best, who are you to say no? You understand? But you, the ordinary person, cannot just say, oh, this football player is the best. It doesn't make sense. Who agrees with you? Nobody. But when God says it, it's a final argument. God is telling us something believable because he is God. He is the Haqq. And he says in Quran chapter 10 verse 82, even if the criminals dislike it, God will enforce the truth with his words. Yeah.
No, I actually really loved this. I actually love these last particular verses. I had not come across them in quite a while. And as you were talking about them, especially these 3-4 verses, you're right. This is very interesting, isn't it? So Allah, the Creator, who sent this message to the Messenger Muhammad, he in that message to the Messenger very clearly articulated the names that were in the group of Akhyar. So this is a majmu'ah, this is a group, and there are people in there. But the one person that we would expect, Muhammad al-Mustafa, is not mentioned in there.
Yeah.
And that I think is quite interesting. And I actually have gotten a little bit distracted. No, yeah. I'm going to be distracted by...
And it's not a discrimination. There's a reason why God did that. It's never a discrimination.
I actually got a little bit distracted as you were saying. I wondered if I just did a quick search of
because
Mustafa.
God within us, he sees humans with.
Yeah, okay. So this Mustafa term, and I did a very quick search, doesn't seem to appear apart from this one particular verse either. So Mustafa, that we have got a title for Nabi Muhammad, as per the Quran is concerned, is only for those 6 people that we just went through in those particular ayahs. So that was a very interesting insight from you, brother.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. It has been used as a verb. As a verb, yes, it has been used.
Istafa. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Istafa, you're right, comes up quite a few times. But Mustafa, the one that was chosen, selected, that only appears for these people in this particular group of people.
Exactly.
Yeah, which, by the way, just so you realize, Baba Shuaib, I think there's a bit of a delay between us. Just so you've got that in the back of your mind. So when you say, there's a bit of a couple of seconds before it comes to me and vice versa. So don't think I'm talking over you and I'm not thinking this from you. It's just, I think there's a bit of a delay. Yeah. Because your voice has been catching up a little bit as well today. So I don't know if you're on Wi-Fi or you're on a different connection, but just, I mean, it's working and it kind of picks up automatically, but just making sure you're aware of that. And just quickly to everybody in the comments, Assalamu alaikum, those who are watching, we've obviously been talking to each other. I've been keeping an eye on that, but not really interacting because obviously the two of us are talking. So if I maybe continue on the same question, and the question was, is Nabi Muhammad leader of the prophets? Is he Sayyid al-anbiya? Is he Sayyid al-mursaleen? As we like to say about somebody that God did not say. So when I did a search in the Quran, I started with this ayah, and this is an ayah that somebody in the comments mentioned as well. So in this ayah, again, we've been given a few names, but afterwards the instructions that are given to Muslims is that la nufarriqu bayna ahadin minhum, that we people, we who are Muslims, we who adopt the deen of Islam, we who submit, we who listen to Allah, we who listen to this book and follow this book, we do not ourselves distinguish between the messengers of Allah or his anbiya. We don't have that right. And I know there's an ayah in which Allah says that there are darajat in Allah, that Allah has darajat, Allah has a ranking system of which Nabi, which Rasul is better than other. But very clearly, there's something to be aware of, that it is his criteria, Allah's criteria, only known to him. As far as we are concerned, the normal Muslim, the layman, me, or any clergyman, we cannot ever say, per the Quran, that one messenger was better than the other. We may be able to draw hints, like Brother Shuaib had us look at those few ayat before, that these people are in that group. Now, what does that mean? We stop there. Well, I personally will stop there, because I'm not allowed to say this particular Rasul, this particular Nabi was in any way or form better than the other. That's not for me to say. It's not for me to say. It's Allah's judgment. Allah knows what's in everybody's nafs, and that should be the end of it. The other ayat that I found,
Exactly.
which was also quite very interesting. This is Allah saying. This is not I. It's not Musa. It's not Shuaib. It's not any clergyman. Allah says, وَمَا مُحَمَّدٌ إِلَّا رَسُولٌ, and Muhammad was not but a messenger. قَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ الرُّسُلُ, before him passed messengers. Now, if I just look at this little segment, this little part of the verse, how can I ever derive from this verse any message that this particular messenger was better than the others? I mean, the sense that I get is very clear. This thing in front of you belongs to that group, and before that thing, there are others who were just like that. So there's no difference that's being made. It's not as if Allah is now saying, I've got a messenger that's going to be superlative, or that's going to outshine everybody, that's going to have a message greater, bigger, more awesomer than whatever happened. Allah is very clearly saying, وَمَا مُحَمَّدٌ إِلَّا رَسُولٌ قَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ الرُّسُلُ, that Muhammad is a messenger, and before him there were many messengers who passed. So the tone that we get from the Quran is very clear. Nabi Muhammad is a great person. You know, and I'm sure Brother Shuaib will agree, will never be quite the character, the personality, you know, the human that Nabi Muhammad was. He was awesome. Allah chose him. But he was a messenger, just like other messengers, per the sender of this message. So this is quite a weird little one for me when people bring this up, and I'm like, well, yeah, I know what you're saying, and I appreciate your emotions, because this is an emotive topic for you, and I can understand. I don't even want to argue with you. You're free to believe what you want. But if we stick to Allah and His Quran, the message is clear. This particular person was not better or worse as per the message in front of the one who gave him that message, the one who created him. I've got a couple of other verses, and they are in the same vein as you were talking, brother. Before that, again, this same person, messenger Muhammad, was being said to say, قُل, say Muhammad, being the first recipient, مَا كُنْتُ بِدْعًا مِنَ الرُّسُلِ وَمَا أَدْرِي مَا يُفْعَلُ بِي وَلَا بِكُمْ. Say, O Muhammad, I am not a bid'ah. By the way, bid'ah, I think, is the only time it appears in the Quran, in this ayah. You know how bid'ah, you can't do this, you know, our Salafi brothers, this is bid'ah, this is bid'ah. In the Quran, saying that this messenger, Muhammad, was something different than the others, that is a bid'ah. Or, you know, that could be something you could say Allah refers to. Again, Muhammad was saying, Messenger Muhammad was saying, I'm not a bid'ah, I'm not something strange, I'm not a new beginning or whatever, a deviation from the other messengers. They did not know what was going to happen to them. I don't know what's going to happen to me. That is what this messenger was saying. In attabi'u illa ma yuha ilay. I only follow what is revealed to me. Wama ana illa nadhirun mubin. And I'm not but a warner and a tider and a good news giver. And I picked up on this one as well, Millat Ibrahim. And I had the same logic as you, Brother Shuaib. When Allah is, when we're reading the Quran, and this is exactly the same ayah you had picked up as well. When Allah is saying to the first recipient, Nabi Muhammad, ثُمَّ أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ, and then when we revealed to you, O Muhammad, أَنْ اتَّبِعْ مِلَّةَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ حَنِيفًا, that you, O Muhammad, are to follow Millah of Ibrahim. So this is the same logic, and I think it's very clear-cut logic. If a person is being ordered to follow the millah, the way of another person, then by necessary logic, the person following is not greater than the one he's following. If I go to a class and someone says you should follow or you should obey this teacher, I am always going to be one step behind because I am following. The leader is not the follower, and vice versa. it should not take rocket science to understand that. So anybody who comes up and talks about that from a different perspective, it's a really weird listening for me, because yes, I understand, yes, I appreciate, I respect your views. End of the day, that's not what the Quran says. And I think the other verse you brought up was also quite interesting, Baba Shuaib. So here, Nabi Muhammad was ordered to follow ittabi' millat Ibrahim, one person, but then he himself was saying to others, ittabi'u, you all follow millat Ibrahim. So what he followed, he told others to follow as well. And just maybe a word in passing, Nabi Muhammad did not have kutub or suhuf of Sunnah of Ibrahim written out for him that he followed. Nor did those who were around him, nor do we. So if we are all to follow the millah, the way, the system of Ibrahim, well, there are no books for it apart from what we have in the Quran. So that's also, I guess, just a word in passing.
Yeah.
Right, should we move on to the next point, brother?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is probably more general discussion, and I did see a comment on that as well, and I should have you talk about it. So people, clergymen, well-meaning people, they love, and that's fine. We can love whoever we want, and I think we should love Nabi Muhammad because he was a great person. We should not do ghulu in it. We should not exaggerate it. But some of the points that come up is, universe was created for Prophet Muhammad. Well, we talked about that. Nabi Muhammad was the last prophet. So this is something that comes up. Because he was the last, it means the best. Or that he was sent as Rahmatul lil Alameen. Or the ijma, maybe. Hey, all of us. How can we all of us be wrong? All of us, man. From 1450 years, all our clergy across generations, Salaf and Tabi'een and all those wonderful people, they all said so. How can you say that he was not the greatest? So I don't know if you want to talk about anything from any of those ayats or any of those comments, really.
Yeah. Like I said, when it comes to the Quran, God told the Prophet, "Watmat kalimatu rabbika sidqan wa adlan, la mubaddila li kalimatihi." Then he says, "Wasami'un alim." The word of God is complete in truth and justice. There is no option put. Now, what people don't understand is, if I have the words of God and they are complete for me, and there is no alteration in the words of God, and I can find in truth and justice with the words of God, sidqan wa adlan. Nobody can be just than God, more just than God, and nobody can be more truthful than God, right? So the word of God stands as the epitome of all knowledge when it comes to the Quran. So you hear people exaggerate in a lot of topics. They say a lot of things which they can never confirm or prove to you with logic. They can't. But they just want it to be as if whoever opposes such views becomes an enemy. This is how they tag you. Because you oppose such a view of them not being able to prove the whatever they claim, they take you as an enemy. So what I've learned along the way is, when I come across people and they are making certain claims, I don't show them that I'm in opposition with their views. What I do is I playfully or friendly ask them a simple question. I ask them, do you think Prophet Muhammad is the best of all mankind? Then the person will be like, yes. I said, did you hear the way I asked you the question? The person will be like, can you ask me again? And I say, do you think that Prophet Muhammad is the best of all mankind? The person will say yes. And then I say, give me the reason why he's the best. Guess what? The person doesn't have a personal reason. They always, I spoke about it here. Reasons always come from the indoctrination they've been told. Then they start now their whims. Oh, because God says this. And I'm like, wow, God said that? Then the person is like, yes. And I'm like, okay, I have the Quran here. Do you have the Quran on your phone? The person will be like, yeah. I say, okay, open it. Show me where God says that. Then the person will tell me, oh, you know what? Me, I don't know the Quran, or I don't know what the Quran says. I can call my sheikh. Then you can talk to your sheikh. And you can talk to my sheikh. So then I'll be like, why will you say things that you have no knowledge about? Because it goes against the Quran. Chapter 17, verse 36. Quran says, do not pursue that of which you have no knowledge about. If you don't know something, don't pursue it. So here we are, we have majority of Muslims on earth today pursuing a particular thing which they have no idea the source of information, where it is coming from, just because a scholar have sat down on a platform or on standing on a podium to say it, they take it as it is. And then they go outside there talking with an extreme type of, conviction that when you try to say something contrary to what they are telling you, you become an enemy. Do you see? So dealing with people along the way, sometimes we have to deal with people with rationale. When we use rationality to have such discussions, just like you found me on your platform, we are having this discussion. This is intellectually, and we are dealing with the evidence and proof from God. And this is not actually to say we are looking down on somebody's intelligence or to think somebody is stupid or not. No. The fact is, people need to put emotions aside and deal with the truth. We all know the truth doesn't sound sweet sometimes. Just like when I told you about the Mustafa al-Akhyar that God has chosen as the best with him. I didn't say I chose them. Neither did I say those are my favorites. I don't do that. I'm opening the book of God, the same prophet who brought it, Muhammad. God is now telling him in that book. And this is God's choice. I can tell my kids, for example, hey, I have some candies on the table, don't touch them. But in front of them, I might choose to eat the candies. The question is, whose candy is it? It's for me. It's not for them. It's my candy. I bought it. I can tell my kids, don't touch it. That doesn't mean just because I'm eating the candy, so they also have the right to eat the candy. So same goes with the logic that we spoke about earlier. When God says these are the best with him, that is God. You have no objection to that. It is God's choice. We are not saying, look, to be honest, I lost a friend. He's from Morocco. He died earlier this year. May he rest in peace. A friend of mine who used to come to me and we have discussion, religious discussion, the Quranic discussion. He has learned a lot from me as well. One day he asked me, so if I was the one to choose the best among the prophet, who will I choose? And I said, brother, are you pulling my strings? And then he said, no, he just want to know for the sake of course, he doesn't agree with what I'm going to say. He just want to listen to what I'll say. Then I said, the reason, if it comes to choosing, because I'm a human being, whatever I choose, contrary to what God chooses, mine will be a flaw. Because you, the human being, the way you see things is not the way God sees things. So when God says these are the chosen best ones with him, if I have to choose as a human being, I'll be looking for the prophet who has superhuman powers. For instance, Sulaiman alayhi salam. If you check the criteria, the way God describes the kingdom of Sulaiman and whatever he has, imagine going somewhere and God commands the wind to be on your direction and however you want. And you can listen to, the logic of birds and animals. Imagine this kind of kingdom, a human being, you control the genes, humans, birds, and everything. Wouldn't love to have this. If it is for me, a human being, to choose this, I will just be looking at this criteria and say, oh, wow, Suleiman is the best. But who cares? What role does my choice play? You understand? How does it motivate anybody? But because we are here because of the truth and God, what God chooses is final. We are not to decide again. So it is out of this that people formulated doctrines in that God hasn't approved, and then they will go ahead and tell you Prophet Muhammad is the best of all creation, whereby God doesn't approve that. And so this is the kind of problem we face throughout the generation.
Yeah. This is quite an interesting point that you said in the end, brother. So all of these standards that we create, like the ones you mentioned, right? So if anybody wanted to say, hey, if you had a great kingdom like Suleiman, then that is to be the marker for the greatest messenger. Well, that's fine. You came up with a standard, but who gave you the authority, A, to derive that standard, and B, how do you justify that standard is actually the correct way to measure somebody's greatness? Because somebody could be great regardless of which country they live in or what time they lived in, etc., etc. These are just man-made demarcation points. So similarly, somebody could say, well, the first messenger should be better, should be the best, because he was the first. or the middle one, because he came directly in the middle and he was neither this end nor that end. He was the most. Well, all of these things, we can keep on making them up. But as you were saying very, very rightly, if Allah did not set that as a standard, and his standard is clear, is taqwa, if he did not say this person is better than the other, we are not allowed to go and put astaghfirullah words into Allah's mouth. We can't say that he has chosen this better than the other, or he is more happier than he, just because I have come up with a standard that Allah has not sanctioned. It is completely logically untenable. I think this was a question that Brother Abdul Rahman Sheikh was also asking in the comments. Now you answered that quite well, that as far as we're concerned, yes, Allah has a concept of darajat. He knows every nafs. What a nafs knows, a nafs has basira about itself. So we know what's in our hearts, and Allah knows what's in our hearts. He makes the judgment. Are there groupings and are there better messengers and prophets? Yes, there are. Who knows about them? Allah knows about them. And as Brother Shuaib mentioned, those 6 or 7, some could be in this group, some could be in that group. So some of the messengers are anbiya, some could be nabiyun, and there is a distinguishment. Some are rusul. Allah never mentions them as a nabi, they are just mentioned as a rasul. So these are different groups that Allah uses in the Quran. We can think about them, we can talk about them, we can muse about them, but if Allah did not authoritatively say, we cannot make up things just because we heard somebody say that they learned from somebody that passed away 300 years ago, or from a book that was written up 1,000 years ago, 1,200 years ago in Bani Abbas's time. We just cannot say that. The other thing you said, brother, I picked up on Aqidah. I did a video in Urdu, and out of that, because our brothers, they're very strung up on Aqidah, you must have the right Aqidah, you know, this, that. That term is non-Quranic. It does not even exist. So all of those who say, oh, you got the wrong Aqidah, brother, you can't say the wrong Aqidah. Well, hold on. Even the term you're using is against the message that we are talking about here. And the last thing I'll say before we go on to the next point is, you mentioned having intellectual talks about the Quran, because we talk about the Quran, and I actually feel quite dumb because I stick to the Quran. Why do I say that? Because even though I like creativity, I like to come up with things, I feel myself constrained when I talk about the Quran, because I have to stay within the confines of what this book says and doesn't say. So just because I can point to a line, to an ayah of the Quran in which the writer is saying something, does that really make me intelligent? Does it really make me clever? Or does that just make me a good reader? I'm like, hold on a second, what you say does not appear in that book. So is something as simple as that, you know, because that's all we've done today so far. You have not added, brother, anything from your own will. I have not added or introduced my own biases. We're just reading out the verses. Yes, we are translating them into English, but this is the message. This is the mafhum. We're not adding, we're not removing, we're not putting a spin on it. We're not doing any creativity on it. We're just putting it out there in front of people. So are we intelligent for that? Personally, in my view, I don't think I'm intelligent for that. This is my view. So if my daughter, she's about almost turning 11, she reads a book and I say, well, what happened in that book? And she tells me, well, this, and I say, hold on a second. I thought that character, that magician, he was the best magician. She goes, no, daddy, I'll take you to this page, and on that page I read, on that chapter, that line, that was just an average messenger, just an average sorcerer. I'm going to say, okay, well, daughter, you're right. Now, is she intelligent for pointing out the obvious? I don't think so. Okay. Yes, there was another comment there, brother, that maybe if you could talk about. So our brother had mentioned.
Let me point out. According to the Quran, there's another form of intelligence. There are different forms of intelligence, how it works. You see, when you put Quran chapter 39, verse 18 into perspective. Quran chapter 39, verse 18. And God says, Allazina yastami'una al-qawla fayattabi'una ahsanahu. Then he says, Ulaika allazina adahullah ulaika hum ulul albab. Now, when it comes to discerning a speech or the talk or the word and following the best of it, it takes intelligence to do that. You know, so this is why people who like reading a lot, they seem to have a chunk of intelligence with them because they read a lot. So when you read, you're building the brain and the mind and the brain to know how to connect language, to know how a discourse gives you a context, to know how a discourse leads you to the end of a message by giving you the content. So when you take this verse, when God says, "Allazina yastami'una al-qawla fayattabi'una ahsanahu," it takes an intelligent person to follow the best of a statement.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. You understand? So this is why our kids, when they go to the nursery schools, when they go to schools, primary schools, daycare, whatever, they give them books to read in order to see how the brain, the intelligence of the kid works, what they can fathom from what they have read. Now, you know, the theme of the Quran is a guidance from God. That's the theme. It is a guidance from God. So whatever we are reading, you have to put the burden. Whatever you are reading is not just a story. Even though we have Qasas, Surah Al-Qasas, chapter 28, it means the story. Like, it's not just a story. You the reader, you're working to take a guidance from the whatever you are reading. So we have people who can listen and use intelligence to fish out the best and follow. Then again, we have, on the other hand, that is in Quran chapter 38, verse 29. You can put the verse on the screen. Chapter 38, verse 29.
Yep, got it. Yeah, go on.
So God says, Kitabun anzalnahu ilayka mubarakun. Then he said, liyadabbaru ayatihi wa liyatazakkar ulul albab. So God says, it is a blessed book which we have revealed to you. That is Muhammad alayhi salam. He was the one who received the Quran. Then God says, liyadabbaru ayatihi, so that they, the people, this word is in the plural form, so you can see liyadabbaru ayatihi.
Many people.
So they, the people, all the people, many people, can now what? Contemplate, ponder, reflect, think deeply about it. The verses. So not just the book, the verses. Because whatever verse we are reading is not just reading sake. You have to have intellectual discussions about it. You have to contemplate. You understand? So then God says, وَلِيَتَذَكَّرَ أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ, and that those of intelligence, those who possess the insight, the intellect, will now what? Pay attention, take heed to whatever they are contemplating. So now, the notion of using your intellect, we saw prior to this, the first verse talks about listening and following the best. Then this one talks about contemplating the verses. You see, contemplating the verses and then to take heed. Now, whoever contemplates a verse and takes heed from it, that is another intelligent person. And whoever listens to the word and then follows the best from it, that is another intelligent person. So when it comes to intellect, and we are having intellectual discussions, it is about perspectives, how you see things and how I see things. May it be, I might be looking at something from just the right angle, whilst you are looking at it from the left angle. So I need you to tell me what you see from the left angle in order to make sense from mine, to combine them and reflect. May it be I benefit from whatever you are seeing from your side, and you also benefit from whatever I'm seeing from my side. So this is what I meant by the statement I said. We have to, we should have intellectual discussions on topics as such to enlighten the people, because there is something they might not be paying attention. So maybe may it be part of this conversation, somebody is only listening, but he might follow the best of our conversation.
No, you're quite right there. And actually, maybe if I could paraphrase, go back in time, I would have said something like, just pointing to the verses, that's the lowest form of intelligence, right? If you're saying Allah made this messenger better than the other, that requires, that part at least, requires very little intelligence. You can just say, I've read all the ayat, and there's nothing like that. But the deeper you go, the more tadabbur you do, the more tafakkur you do end up getting into discussions and points where, as you were saying, Brother Shuaib, and I agree with you, you may come with your own worldview and your life experience, your intelligence level, and you may be taking things and looking at from the whole at a certain part of it. I may be able to, from that whole, look at a slightly different angle of it. So if we don't talk, if we don't collaborate, all of that ends up being stuck within us. So these sort of discussions are useful because we can talk and we can learn and we can spark creativity, and then we can do nastamir. We can pay attention while we're listening and take ahsana. So we can then take the best part of it. Just not, so there's a surface, when I talk in Urdu, I actually call it level 1 reading, Brother Shuaib. So you read the qasas you said, right?
Yeah.
You read the qasas, there was this happened. You can stay at that level forever, and that's fine. You know, maybe that's where your intelligence stops.
Yeah.
But if you were to go and think about them, the Quran in this ayah says, if you were to do tadabbur, you will start picking up things. And that part, intelligence-wise, it does depend upon how much, what you get, what you put in. I also picked up on this ayah there, brother. I think is your internet there? Can you hear me? Okay, I think you're back now. Yes, I can hear you now.
My distinct froze here.
Yeah. So this is the other thing I picked up, which I think ironic is a wrong word, but interesting in this particular ayah. Alladhina yastami'una al-qawl. It doesn't say alladhina yasma'una al-qawl. So again, talking about the intellectual discussions, we could have a chat now. I think you and I, if we start talking, we'll never stop. But why does Allah say alladhina yastami'una al-qawl instead of alladhina yasma'una al-qawl? So again, yasma' wa yastami' in the Quran, they're being used in different ways. So if you're just listening like sharud dawab, you just sharul bariya, just listen, you don't really pay attention. You're not the one who's doing yastamir, who's paying attention, who's really listening and with perception. And this is the group people Allah is talking about. And so within the ayah itself, God talks about not normal hearing, but those who are listening with attention. Alladhina yastami'una al-qawl. And after that, yattabi'una ahsana. So, I thought even this ayah was quite an interesting one. But I think you and I will just keep talking. We'll just keep getting distracted. Okay, so Ijma, brother, if you want to talk a little bit about that. So, how you kind of referred to that before as well. But hey, 1400. Okay, all right. So 1400 years ago, since 1400 years, we all have believed. We all think our ulama, they can't be wrong. Our muftiyun can't be wrong. They all say Nabi Muhammad is the best. How can you guys just come up now and start talking this crap? So how do you want to answer that, Brother Shuaib?
What people fail to realize is, I'm going to give an example, right? I'm going to use football to give an example. In the past, they have had football players like Maradona, Pele, and so on and so forth. But this modern day, we are no more talking about Pele, Maradona anymore. We are talking about Messi and Ronaldo. Now, what people fail to realize is people always want to live in the past. Always. People always want to live in the past. They like to rely on the past, always. They don't want to move ahead and look forward. Now, every generation has its own uniqueness. Every generation has its own uniqueness. However, we can learn from history. Doesn't necessarily mean we have to always rely on history. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is, you can put Quran chapter 39, verse 55 on the screen before I make the point I'm making.
39:53?
39:55.
55. Yep, got it.
Now, even though the Quran is a guidance for mankind, but let's pay attention carefully what God is saying in this verse. He says, "Wattabi'u" is talking to all of us, mankind. Because remember, the book is a guidance for mankind. The Quran chapter 2, verse 185, Hudan linnas. The Quran is a guidance for mankind. God is talking to mankind. He says, وَاتَّبِعُوا أَحْسَنَ ma unzila ilaykum min rabbikum. You see, he is telling us to follow the best of what he, our Lord, has revealed to us. It doesn't necessarily mean I should follow everything I see in the Quran. Some things has a timeline, and it stays at that timeline. Somebody will say, what is this guy trying to say? For instance, in Quran chapter 33, verse 50 to 51, it tells the believers, when they are coming to the house of the Prophet, they should come with permission. And when they want to stay, after eating, they shouldn't stay to just have a discussion with the Prophet. No, they shouldn't stay. Does it apply to us now? It doesn't. You see, it doesn't apply to us now. Now, what people fail to realize is, our people, the people we claim they are scholars, we grew up meeting them as scholars. We didn't see when they actually won the title of scholarship. It is all of the sudden you grew up, you found your parents venerating a scholar and telling you he's a top scholar, he's a big scholar. So they want people to remain blinded, and they don't want people to wake up from the slumber. So when you, being a young person, all of a sudden can pick up the best of what God has revealed to pinpoint some of the errors in the understandings people have, people will take you as an enemy. They will hate you straightforward. Because to them, they are like, who are you? When did you grow up? Who are you to come and tell us otherwise? People always fail to look in deeper, to always find the best. So whenever I'm dealing with the Quran, I'm only dealing with the best. Always. I'm looking for the best option in the Quran. And what is the best? It doesn't mean I don't believe in the Quran in its entirety. I believe everything in the Quran. Now, there's a difference between to believe in something and to follow something. There's a big difference. I believe in the entirety of the Quran, but I'm not following the entirety of the Quran. There are some things in the Quran, you can't follow it. For instance, we have the attitude that the khutwat is shaitan, what the devil has done, what Pharaoh did, what Karuna did, what some of the evil people did in the Quran. Does that mean I have to follow such examples? No. We don't have to follow such examples. Like, for instance, the devil being arrogant to God, must I do the same? No. I believe that story. I believe it, but I'm not following that. So there's a difference in the way we follow the messages of God. So, however, the Quran, as people claim to say, came 1,400 years ago. Now, this is an ancient book we are still taking guidance from. Some things inside remains in the past. But some things, yes, can be carried forward. And this is what some people don't usually understand when it comes to following history and lessons we learn from our forefathers. And sorry, I need to get some water.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, I would pick up on maybe, but until we wait for Baba Shuaib to come back. We read something. We may find the characters change. We might find the people change, the circumstances change. But quite often what we find is that despite all of these surface level changes, the message we can draw still does not change. So they're ibrah, and this is, I think, what how the Quran refers to, these qasas as well. So all of these stories are meant to derive a point. And the point is that if you, in your time, if you in your circumstances, whether you're working in an office and you're in charge of certain people, whether you come back to your home and you've got kids that you need to look after, etc., when you have responsibility and you look at some of the other such positions where other people had those responsibilities, however it was that they interacted with them, we have to draw ibrah from them, from those qasas, and apply it to us. Yeah, brother. Yep, continue.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was just taking notes from the point you just made right now concerning the ibrah, the ibrah, the lesson that we take from the Quran, because it's a book of guidance. And remember, anything you are taking your guidance from, you get ibrah from it, you get a lesson from it. Now, the Quran, we take lessons and then we learn from it and we have guidance. So some people want to take the Quran as a book of blessing only. They read it, they recite it to get blessings, and they don't see it as the book of guidance. For instance, the sectarians don't see the Quran as a book of guidance. No, they see the Hadith books as the book of guidance because that is what they believe it tells them whatever to do. So, coming to how we have been indoctrinated, when you seem to have a different view to the elders, to the the leaders and the elders and then the dignitaries, you seem to become an enemy of some sort. Because in Quran chapter 33 verse 67, we will have people who will lament on the day of judgment. If you put the verse on the screen, 33:67, where they will say, "Qalu Rabbana inna atana sadatana wa kubara'ana fa'adalluna sabila." They will come on the day of judgment and they say, "Our Lord, we have obeyed our masters, that is sadatana, wa kubara'ana, that is like your seniors, your elders, your dignitaries, your leaders." Then he says, "Fa'adalluna sabila," and they misled us on the way or from the way. Now, what happens is people just like to obey their leaders and masters without actually thinking outside the box. So when you have a youth or when you have a young person who now uses intelligence to differ from what the elders or the masters have taught, they seem to now indoctrinate the masses to hate such a person, because what will happen? You will end up waking up the masses up from the sleep and the slumber. You see, so when it comes to the modern day, what we deal with is people refuse to use their rationality. They rather use emotions. So when you talk about this, complicated or controversial topics, it becomes something of a heartbreak for them, instead of just focusing on what is being discussed and to take the lessons from it and benefit from it.
Yeah, I'm just aware of time as well, so maybe I'll talk a little bit about the same thing, and then we'll move on to the next, maybe to the summary part, brother. So,
yeah,
aktharuhum, you kind of hinted at that. So the argument that the majority, you should follow the majority. The majority has had this view for such a long time that it must be right. So just because you gather a group of people and the majority of them on something, that makes it right. Well, the Quran has got something very clear to say about it, and Brother Shuaib talked about this before, or talked to it before. I looked at the verses that have the word aktharuhum, most of them, majority of them, and there's very distinct theme that keeps coming up all the time. So aktharuhum la yu'minun, aktharuhum la ya'lamun, most of them do not know. Aktharuhum la yaqilun, most of them do not think. Sorry, I just got a little something that came up here. Aktharuhum yajhalun, aktharuhum wala tajidu aktharuhum shakirin, most of them you do not find them in the state of shukur. Aktharuhum la fasiqin. So whenever the Quran does seem to talk about the majority, it comes with negative connotations. It's not something to be proud of. It's not something to be happy about, that, hey, I'm part of this group, this group think, so to speak. And because I'm this group think, we all think the same. We all have a leadership hierarchy where I listen to him and he listens to him and he listens to him. We're all going to be fine. Absolutely not. And this is going back to the same verse that the brother was showing. We could then come up with excuses down the track and say, oh Allah, we were just following our leaders and they were their leaders. How can we be at fault? Well, this is not an excuse that will go far, unfortunately, in eyes of Allah. All right, brother Shuaib, and I know I'm probably making you talk way too much because your throat is beginning to give out a bit. So if you want to maybe summarize for us and maybe go back to the topic in your reading of the Quran, and if you want, I can bring up verses as well. What do you think? What is the character of Nabi Muhammad? How is he being referred? Who is this person, Muhammad, per the Quran, compared to what we see?
Yeah. Now, coming to that point, I'm going to use some few verses to cite that point. For instance, Prophet Muhammad is a simple Muslim. I'll use the word a simple Muslim. So first of all, Quran chapter 27, verse 91 to 92. Quran chapter 27, verse 91 to 92.
Yep, got it.
Now, however, I'm going to take the middle side of the verse where he says, "Wa umirtu akuna min al-muslimin." You see, and I have been commanded to be of the what? Muslims, the submitters, those who submit. For those who don't know, when we say Muslim, they think it's an English word. Muslim, the word Muslim is never an English word. It's an Arabic word. However, people have tried to modernize it by making it, romanize it to make it sound English. When we say Muslim, somebody who willfully submits to God. So that is what a Muslim belongs to Islam. So the Islam is what the submission is about. You submit to the will of God. What he commands you, you do. Then the middle side connecting to the next verse says, "Wa an atlu wal Quran." So the command starts with to be of the Muslims, and the command continues that he has to what? Recite the Quran. So we can see the notion of being a Muslim, it goes with also reciting the Quran, because this is where you are taking your guidance from. You see, so you don't only become a Muslim without knowing the Quran. It is useless to claim the word Muslim anyway by not following the Quran or knowing the Quran or reciting the Quran. Then he said, فَمَنِ اتَّدَى فَإِنَّمَا يَاتَدِي لِنَفْسِهِ. So whoever is guided, then he is guided for himself. Then he says, وَمَنْ ضَلَّ. Then he says, now tell them, فَقُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا مِنَ الْمُنْذِرِينَ. I am only of the warners. So whoever decides to go astray, just tell him you are only of the warners. So it is up to him to decide what he wants. Now, apart from this verse, to just give to the summary of who the prophet is as a simple man. When you go to Quran chapter 50, verse 45. Chapter 50, verse 45.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Now, apart from seeing that the prophet being a Muslim and has to recite the Quran, here I'm going to give the last part of the verse, where it starts with فَذَكِّرْ بِالْقُرْآنِ مَنْ يَخَافُ وَإِيدٍ. Now, the last part of this verse, you can see, since the prophet has been told to commanded to also recite the Quran, out of what you recite, just like we say, you have to preach what you have to practice what you preach. Now he has to use the Quran to remind the people, whoever fears God, the command, the threats of God or the warnings of God, use and remind such people with it. فَذَكِّرْ بِالْقُرْآنِ مَنْ يَخَافُ وَحِيدٍ. God didn't tell him to فَذَكِّرْ بِالْسُنَّةِ or فَذَكِّرْ بِالْحَدِيثِ. He says
Okay, I think your internet is back now. Yep.
Then apart from that, we now apart from that, we go to Quran chapter 6, verse 19. I think next time I have to connect directly my cable, because I was using my computer was away from the
okay.
The router.
Is this 619? This one?
Oh, yes, 619.
Yep, got it.
Now I'm going to take somewhere starting from وَأُوهِيَ إِلَيَّ هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ. Now in that verse, the reason why I'm going mostly in the middle of the book, because I just want to summarize the points I'm making concerning the prophet and who he is, right? So he said, وَأُوهِيَ إِلَيَّ هَذَا الْقُرْآنُ لِأُنْزِرَكُمْ بِهِ وَمَنْ بَلَغَ. And this Quran has been inspired to me in order to warn you by it and whomever it may reach. So apart from he being commanded to be a Muslim and then to recite the Quran, he has been commanded to also remind whoever fears God with the Quran. And now here, he has been inspired with the Quran in order to warn the people by it. So to warn the people, he has to use the Quran. To remind the people, he has to use the Quran. To recite the Quran and book, he has to use the Quran. Three things. He has to read and recite. He has to what? Warn, and he has to remind. Now, this role model, that as a messenger, God says, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. That is Quran chapter 33, verse 20. Right? لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ.
33, sorry?
لِمَنْ كَانَ, yeah, that is 33:21.
21. Yep.
21.
Yep.
So when he says, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ, then he says, لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو اللَّهَ وَالْيَوْمَ الْآخِرَ. Then he says, وَذَكَرَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا. So now, this messenger, he falls in the criteria of what is a good pattern, a good example for you to follow. That is, if you are hoping to meet God, and you are hoping for God and the last day, and then you remember God frequently, the messenger has set the standards. We can see it in the Quran. So if this messenger was using the Quran to remind the people, was using the Quran to warn the people, was reciting the Quran, and then God told him in one of the chapters, I think chapter 87, verse 6 to 7, سَنُقْرُؤُكَ فَلَا تَنْسَى إِلَّا مَا شَاءَ اللَّهُ. If God told him all this, Sanukuruka, which is qira'a, to read. When we are reading something, you have to have something which is written down. So to read it, this is the man here. This is a prophet. And in summary, if we are talking about the Quran, which means everything he has to do was based on the Quran, that defines who he is in a simplified form. Because I have to be somebody who practices the Quran in order to use the Quran to preach to you. I have to be somebody who lives by the Quran in order to use the Quran to remind you. I have to be somebody who actually gets warnings from the Quran in order to use the Quran to warn you. There's no way I can be acting opposite to the Quran and telling you to rather follow the Quran. It doesn't make sense. You see, so the Prophet himself, his legacy in the Quran, God showed us whatever, even the mistakes he made, God pinpointed the mistakes. For people who don't know, for instance, Quran chapter 66, verse 1, he made a mistake.
Yep.
And God used that to tell us to err is human. It is not as if he's untouchable, as the sectarians always claim that, oh, the Prophet never mistake. He is not God. It is only God who doesn't err or forgets. But as a human being, you can err and you can make a mistake and you can forget. So Quran chapter 66 verse 1, it gives the Prophet the warning. Lima tuharrimu ma ahallallah laka tabtagi mardata azwajika wallahu ghafurur rahim.
Yep. This one here.
You see, it is a warning because he made a mistake. God has made something lawful for him, but he decided to say it is haram. God didn't put this verse in the Quran to make us look down on the Prophet. No, but it is to tell us that to err is human. He's a human being. He's not a God, or neither is he a demigod. So what people need to understand is the Prophet is a human being. And he said it himself. Quran chapter 34 verse 50. He, the Prophet, the messenger, he said it himself that to err is part of him as a human being. He says, Kul in the laltu fa innama adillu ala nafsi. You see? So it is not as if he cannot err. He can err. So he even put out a condition, and if I should err, or if I should make a mistake, or if I should stray, fa innama adillu ala nafsi. Because God will never let him stray after guiding him. He told us clearly, he doesn't put you to error after guiding you. So what people fail to understand is, another point mentioned concerning the Prophet is in Quran chapter 9, verse 43. I think the last one before I summarize on his quality.
What was
Quran
the
chapter
answer?
9, verse 43.
9 verse 43. Yep. This one, yep.
In this verse, God actually pardoned him. Now, you can only pardon somebody when they make a mistake. You see, God pardoned him. Afallahu ank. Then God asked him, Lima azinta lahum hatta yatabayyana laka allazina sadaku wa ta'lam al-kazibin. So God actually pardoned him because he gave permission to the people who he never actually investigated them to know who is the truthful and who is the liar. He didn't check by giving, then he gave them permission. And this permission wasn't inspired by God. So meaning to err is human. Prophet Muhammad can err. But when you start taking him in the status of God, a godly status, then that is where the danger arises. And that is how people end up worshiping the prophet. But because they have been indoctrinated, they don't see the act of worship they are doing for him. You see, so he's a human being. We can see all his qualities in the Quran. So just because if me, Baba Shuaib, claim I'm following the Quran doesn't mean I cannot err. To err is human, but you have to accept your mistakes and move on. Because at the end of the day, it is the guidance the God has sent down to fix your mistakes and let you become a better person, as Prophet himself said. You see, so to finish the verse prior to this, chapter 34, verse 50, let me finish the verse so people can understand how the Prophet was guided. He said, "Kul in dalaltu fa innama adillu ala nafsi." Then he says, "Wa inni tadaitu." You see, fabima yuhi ilayya rabbi. Then he says, and if I am guided, or if I should be guided, then it is by what my Lord has inspired to me. And we all know what God inspired to him. That is the Quran. It is the inspiration of God. So Quran is here as a guidance for mankind. So the Prophet on his own cannot guide himself, neither can he guide you. To summarize this, Quran chapter 2, verse 172.
To 172?
Yeah.
No. This one?
Sorry, I said 172. Sorry. Chapter 2, verse 272. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So in this verse, God said, Laysa alayka hudahu. Their guidance is not upon you. You see? So Prophet Muhammad didn't come to serve as a guidance himself. He is not the guide, the guide himself. It is God and the Quran that he has given him to come and guide the people. So laysa alayka hudahum. So the responsibility of guidance is not based on Muhammad. Then God says, Walakin Allah yadi man yasha. However, God guides whomever he wills. However, God can guide people through somebody, but it doesn't make that person the epitome of guidance. No. You see, so what people want to take the prophet to be is not what God actually tells us in the Quran. When you check the Quran, you see a simple man, a man of what? A man of righteousness, honesty. Yes, he followed God, but he has his fair share of mistakes, and it makes him human. And then he was asked to follow the Millata Ibrahima. Nowhere did we see the sign of him being the leader of all prophets. Neither does he say he's the best of mankind. Neither does he say he's the best of creation. None of the attributes these people are claiming for Muhammad ever exist in the Quran. It doesn't. None. So he's a simple man whom God has chosen as a messenger and a prophet, according to Quran chapter 33, verse 40. Ma kana Muhammadun aba ahadin min rijalikum walakin Rasulallahi wa khataman nabiyyin. Muhammad is not the father of any man among you. However, he is the messenger of God and the seal of the prophet. God never said he is the imam of the prophet. He says he's the seal of the prophets.
I think this message that we talk about, or even the Quran, actually you were mentioning these ayats and I picked this up for the first time. So, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. Certainly in the Rasulullah there is a great example liman, for whoever, liman. It's not for everybody. So that example is liman kana yarjullaha wal yawm al-akhir. So these examples that we read in the Quran, even the uswa hasana of Rasul Muhammad and of Ibrahim and those with him, is only for those who actively seek out Allah in the Yawm al-Akhir. And same thing I picked up on the other ayah that I'd never quite realized it this way. فَذَكِّرْ بِالْقُرْآنِ. So remind with the Quran, not everybody, because you could keep trying, but this is useless. This is for man yakhafu wa'id. This is for those who are receptive. So if somebody is not receptive, they don't want to listen. And if you go bring it back to our topic, if they would much rather continue to hold on to what their forefathers believed or the clergy has agreed upon, then that's fine. They will, no matter how much of the Quran we present, they will not listen to it. They will not follow it. They will not yastami'una ilayhi. They will not listen with attention to the Quran, and that's okay. This message is for those who want to take guidance. I just thought that was quite interesting, as you were mentioning, and this is, I think, part of what you said when we have discussions. I had read those verses before, but as you were saying, something else clicked into my mind, and I think this is a wonderful advantage of these chats. So if I maybe summarize, and I'll summarize, and we'll wrap up because I'm aware of time. I had a look at I did something before, so I'll just read out all of the qualities of this man Muhammad, a great man that I picked up from the Quran. Instead of the verses, I'll just read them out in a sort of a paragraph. So Muhammad, the man, the messenger, the prophet, was a mortal, multi-dimensional man. He was modest, did not have miracles. He was told that he was like other messengers before him. He was dutiful, against racism, given a universal message, told you're mortal. He was realistic, without ego. He used logic. He had a very hard job, but he was wise. He did his job to the letter, but he needed help and guidance from God. He told people to connect to God directly, not through him or through anybody else. Never gave up hope. He made some mistakes, as you said. He made mistakes because he was a mortal human being. But he also tried to stay away from ignorant. He cared deeply. He felt responsible and sad. In the Quran, we find this person to be quite emotional, to be quite sad, and he feels when people aren't listening. But when he was ridiculed, he also did not insult them back or fight them. Yet he remained steadfast, lenient. He wasn't a tyrant. He forgave when his companions made mistakes, remained steadfast and patient and eager to help. He kept learning even when he became a messenger. Now, he was also impatient at times. Because of his message, he was a mercy. He also strove against those who blocked God's path. But for all of that, he took no rewards for his hard job. But he continued to help those who were around him in need. Something that I've also picked up from a character snapshot. Now, this is my subjective reading. He seems to be an introverted person, this Nabi Muhammad in the Quran. Introverted person. He's selfless. He's dedicated. Yet he's got a great character. One who did not like to talk about himself. And yet, because of all of these qualities that made him human, Allah made him an uswa hasana for all those who hope to meet Allah and who hope to get a good reward in the Yawm al-Akhir. So that is, I think, such a well-rounded representation of Rasul Muhammad, Nabi Muhammad, per the Quran, in the Quran, that we seem to ignore at the expense of this make-believe person that has got no bearing with the messenger of Quran. So I just think that's quite interesting. Or rather, I think I don't think we'll have time for questions and answers, because we are gonna, I think, finish on. We're gonna try and finish on time.
I think, let me see. I can chime in some 15 minutes or 20 minutes more. Yes, we can go on in case if somebody has to.
Okay, I will actually ask forgiveness on this regard, Baba Shuaib. Today, we've got. Okay, so maybe an advice for me. If you would come into an audience that comprises Pakistanis, Indians, or even South Africans generally, the examples to use, the qudwa, should be cricket and not soccer. So you were talking about Messi and Maradona, etc. We've got the World Cup final. We've got the World Cup. with the Cricket World Cup final happening today, and I need to prepare and do some things before that as well. So a lot of that is on people's mind there.
Yes. I forgot. Yes, I forgot.
Yeah, so remember names
That's
like
good.
Kohli and Baba and some of those people. Anyway, this is completely beside the point. I did have one question for you that if you maybe want to answer, I had marked that down, and that was to do with this verse that you had brought up. Can you still see the sign, the ayah? Linasi imama. So his question was, brother's question was, he said, he was saying this. He said it includes his pious offspring as well. Qala wa min dhurriyati. So the point that he was trying to make, though he didn't quite say it, is that he became Imam Ibrahim, and because Nabi Muhammad was from his dhurriya, he also became the Imam of all of the Nas. So if you want to talk to that, maybe.
Yeah, I actually explained that part. I think people didn't, maybe the questioner didn't grasp that part well. I spoke about he being the leader of mankind, and then I said even the prophets who came after him, most of them came from his descendants. You understand? So if the prophet also comes from his descendants, he is still the leader for mankind, meaning how can then the Prophet Muhammad now become the leader of all the prophets when Abraham is there? Of course, it includes his descendants, of course, by the pious one, the righteous ones, because he doesn't include the Azzalim. So even though he's a leader for mankind, he's leader to serve an example for people who follow Millata Ibrahima. You get my point? So people who don't follow Millata Ibrahim, how can Ibrahim be their leader? They are following somebody else's Millah or Akida. You see? So that is how I summarize the point. I made it in a simplified form because we are basing the topic on Muhammad being the leader. So I was trying to put it in the contrast of, can Muhammad actually become the leader or be the leader, whilst Ibrahim was actually, stipulated to be the leader for mankind. It includes his descendants, because you can see Kala Wamin means including and from his descendants. So it's not only exclusively to his descendants, but to mankind in general, those who are righteous. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I was going to ask you this before in the end, but I'll ask you now because somebody also asked. So if somebody wants to reach out to you, if you want to talk about the best way they can reach out to you, they can talk to you, they can ask you questions about your channel, your TikTok presence, etc. So if you want to just mention to people how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, actually, on all my social media handles, I use the name Bush2G9, BUSH, then the number 2, and then the letter G, and then the number 9. So whenever somebody types this, they will find me on every platform with the same ID. That is Bush2G9. But however, I do interact with people usually in the nighttime when I'm free, because I'm actually occupied with family duties, my work duties, and other things. So what I do is I usually give people my phone number, which I have the times where I answer messages. So I can present the number now, then people like later they can get in touch with me. If they have any questions, sometimes I do have sessions where I can call a person or receive call, but we have to schedule. And I do talk. Now I do give permission for people to record my call. They send me a voice message. I have nothing to hide. So, and one of the reasons is, the reason why I'm such a busy person to actually get to talk to at sometimes, because my schedules are so much tight that, when you're dealing with the masses, you're dealing with the people and from all over the world, you are on a high demand and people want to get in touch with you. And that is another difficult part of this. So I try to divide in my time, because this is about the guidance and it's important. So whoever is willing to know God, I'm there for them. I'll try to find time for them. So they can actually get in touch with me, especially on Instagram. When somebody sends me a message on Instagram, I do respond. When somebody sends me a message on Facebook, I do respond. And my WhatsApp, also, I do respond. So I can present the number also if they want. Is if it can be typed, if somebody can help
Yeah,
us
yeah,
type it.
yeah. If you tell me, I'll write it down for you. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's
plus.
00358. Yeah, plus 358.
Yeah.
466.
466.
80.
Yeah.
3144.
3144. So 358 466 803 143.
3144.
3144 at the very end.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll bring it up on the screen. Just make sure whether this is correct.
Yeah, it's correct. It's correct. So this is my correctional officer's phone number. That is correctional officer. That is the name I use on my platform usually. And that has to do with Islam and the Quran as well. So I use it for people who want to get in touch with me, but it is not every time you can get me online. You find me online usually when you send up a voice message or a message, I'll respond with a quick response. Then that is a signal that, okay, I might be available to respond, or then I can tell you, okay, you can contact me at this given time. Then you can ask your question. And then also my email, the email is the bush2g9@hotmail.com. That is the one I use for answering questions when it comes to Islam. However, some questions I prefer to answer them by voice. The reason is sometimes because I'm so busy, so I hardly have the time to sit down and type the response to people. You know, so when I talk to people by voice, it gives me more room for clarity than when I type. When I type, I might be in a haste, so I do respond faster, and then, you know. So usually I will advise people who are emailing me, if you have some important articles to share, fine, you can share with me. But if you want to have a discussion, just send me a message and then ask how you can get in touch with me. Then we can have a conversation. Thank you.
Okay. We may have quite time for one quick question, brother. So this is, I think, a pertinent one. So if you want to answer that question from Brother Muhammad Shah.
Yeah, the person says, how do you address those people who claim that we cannot be someone like Umar, Abu Bakr, or any of the Prophet's companions? However, these are names we don't find in the Quran. They don't exist. I'm not in the contention to context with or compare myself to anybody God hasn't mentioned as an example. Remember, the stories of the prophets and the messengers are enough for us to follow as an example, right? Nowhere did God make such a comparison that I have to try my best to be like Umar, or try my best to be like Abu Bakr, or try my best to be like Ali or Uthman. No. As a matter of fact, for me, who takes guidance from the Quran, for me, they don't exist. Yeah. They can exist in other storybooks, other narrations, fine, that's up to them. I don't look up to such as an example, because that is not an example God put down for me to follow. So they only exist in those, you know, dogmas or the created, you know, inventions that people have written down. And Quran chapter 6, verse 112 to 113, God actually tells us, "Fazaruhum wama yaftarun." He says, leave them and what they fabricate. So if I see a fabrication and I see an entity whose, you know, story has been fabricated, I'm such, neither do I compare myself with such, you know, fabrications. So I don't look up to that as anything to be, you know, context or to even take it seriously.
Yeah, no, I'll bring this ayah up. I actually quite love this ayah, brother. I'm sure this one of the ones that you prefer as well. وَإِذَا ذُكِرَ اللَّهُ وَحْدَهُ إِشْمَأَزَّتْ قُلُوبُ الَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْآخِرَةِ. Whenever God alone is mentioned, just God, no one else, no messenger, no this companion, that companion. When you just mention God, those who do not believe in the akhirah, they don't like it. وَإِذَا ذُكِرَ الَّذِينَ مِن دُونِهِ. But the moment others are talked about him, beside him, إِذَا هُمْ يَسْتَبْشِرُونَ, then they become happy. And this is really quite prevalent. It's like we need to join Allah and. Where's that end coming from? This is quite an interesting one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what people do. Yeah, usually.
Masihi, my question to please Al-Moses. Yeah, if you quickly ask Masihi your question. If anyone has got a very quick, maybe a very 30-second, 40-second question. If not, brother has given, is very kind with his time, and he has mentioned his email address and his phone number. And you guys can always reach out to him. Okay, I'm going to count till 5, and then we'll just wrap up. 1. Well, I'm just counting in my head. Okay, this one there, brother Masihi, I'll let you talk it out with him, because I've talked to you about this for a lot of times, and we haven't gotten anywhere with it. Because you, in my opinion, you could go into a little bit of homework on Ila and some of the examples in that ayah. So yeah, but if you want, brother Shuaib, you can go bring it up with him. All right, brother Shuaib, if you,
I've seen it. He can contact me on that, and then we see what.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
because
right.
it's a whole boil point of topic altogether. So if I have to answer it now, it will take a lot of time again.
Yes, I recognize that.
I've actually done a full lecture on Salam. I think I did one of my lectures where I spoke about him. I usually use time codes to draft and then pinpoint to people where I've spoken about certain topics on my videos, so that they use the time codes from YouTube to access them.
Yeah. But, very short, and this is my 5-second answer to this one. Even if one was superior than the other, even if that was the case, per the Quran, we are not allowed to make any distinctions between them. For us, they are all messengers of God. That's the end of the question. Now, we could keep on making those lists of better and worse, but that doesn't really apply a whole lot in the Quran. So, Brother Shuaib, before we wrap up, if there's any last words, any last comments, any last things that are on your mind that you want to talk about as your parting statement for today?
Yeah, for my parting statements, I would say, like I said earlier, it is always helpful, and it stands like a comprehensive way of helping people to understand things in a more better way. It doesn't mean when we sit on these platforms we are better than everybody out there listening to us. No, it is just a perspective that we present to the table. May it be 1 or 2 people or 3 people are thinking the same things we are thinking, but the point is we are just the mouthpiece for people who cannot be heard. So then we speak about these issues and we bring the discussions to the table and we help each other in order to move forward. And so this is one of the reasons why I accepted the request to be on such a platform, because we have to see that what we are thinking about is not only with us. Another person from another continent, another race might be thinking the same way. So we come together to have the unity in order to move forward and how to grow ourselves, so that we don't feel lonely in our own private space, thinking that, okay, what I think is this. No. Because if you are thinking alone that way, it carries no weight and it doesn't make any difference. So we have to come together, look at each other's perspective, take what is the truth, leave the opinions aside, and move forward with the truth. So for people who actually listen to me, a lot of people send me messages. They say, brother, I love you. You motivate us. You give us the truth. And I said, yes, I want you to be better than me, because I'm not out there to compete with anybody. I'm just doing me, and I'm trying to present the message out there so that majority can benefit. The more people can benefit, the easier my life will become, because then I'll not be stressing myself to explain myself further. Sometimes when you're talking to people and you want to say something, and then they already understand what you mean, it makes the speech easy. You don't need to stress yourself breaking things much deeper. So I advise everybody to take studying the Quran seriously. If you don't understand something, don't draw conclusions. Try to look at different perspectives till you are convinced. And remember, you have to have the knowledge before you pursue it. Well, you can believe in it, fine, but it doesn't mean you have to follow it by force. And it is okay to disagree with people, but we have to do it respectfully, so that whenever we are having discussions, it will be more of benefiting from each other instead of looking down on each other. So this is what I have for the audience. And thank you for the time, and I appreciate that.
Very well put, brother. Yeah, no, I just want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule and agreeing to come have a chat with me. I think it was a very interesting discussion, and we touched on a few other interesting bits as we went along as well, which is always good. And maybe, inshallah, we can do something like this again in the future as well. As you said, it's fine to just talk about it in your own little ivory towers, so to speak, though that shouldn't be how we think about it, but it's much better to discuss, to collaborate. And I actually quite like the way you mentioned it before. Let us learn from each other's perspectives as well, because we've got the one book, and if we're honest, we all come into the same result, but we can help each other get there faster or see something deeper that maybe we had not been able to see before. And this should be the intellectual pursuit that we should all continue to hold on to and follow. So on that note, thank you very much again, Brother Shuaib. For all those who would have wanted to ask questions and come join us, apologies, we kind of ran out of time. And for those who do follow cricket, you'll all understand why. Inshallah, we'll talk again. Until then, to everybody listening, Assalamu alaikum.
Peace be upon you.